Are you in a long distance relationship or considering starting one? Then this video is for you. Please listen to my advice so you know what you're getting into and you also know how to navigate having a partner that lives in a different city, a different state, maybe even a different country. Because no matter how many odds seem to be against you, like distance, it is totally possible to have a long distance relationship be a successful one. Hey y'all, I'm Reed and welcome back to my channel. Today we're gonna be talking about how to not only survive, but to thrive in a long distance relationship. I love love. Okay, so me and my boyfriend are coming up on our 2-year anniversary. And what lots of people don't know about us is that the first 6 months of our relationship, we were long distance. Yeah, and let me tell you something. It was not easy. I was borderline psycho at times. I'll be the first to admit that. However, we prevailed. We got through it, and now not only do we live in the same city, we live under the same roof, we have a dog, and we have started a life together. But it was not easy in the beginning. So I'm making this video for you so that you have a successful relationship and you don't make the same mistakes I did. So today I'm gonna be sharing with you my top tips for how to thrive in a long distance relationship. Let's get into it. Tip number 1, agree on a schedule from the get-go. A long distance relationship is way more difficult than other relationships for one reason only: the distance. I get that not every long distance relationship has the ability to do this, but if possible, set a schedule for when you're going to see each other and how often from the beginning of the relationship. At the beginning of me and my boyfriend's relationship, one good thing we did is we decided that we were gonna try to see each other at least every 2 weeks. And we would take turns in going to see each other. So for instance, this weekend I would fly to see my boyfriend for the weekend, and then 2 weekends from now, he would fly to see me. Now, that lasted for about 2 months. And then things got tricky. You know, life gets busy, people get busier. I remember 1 month, I was the one that went to see him every single time, like 3 times. What you don't wanna happen is you don't wanna get resentful with your partner, like, oh, I'm doing all the work to come see you, you never come to see me. So setting the intention that you're gonna try as much as you can to make it equal, 50-50, and as far as like making the effort to go see each other is a good thing, but also just really trying to keep to that schedule of how often you want to see each other. I remember there are about 2 occasions when we went 3 weeks without seeing each other, and that's when I got into psycho land. I remember right after the 2-week mark for that 3rd week, I would feel so insecure, so uneasy, so anxious, just because when you go that long without seeing someone in the beginning of a relationship, your mind can play tricks on you. I would start to think, oh, is this even possible to do long distance? How will we ever decide on the same city to live in? My mind would just run through all the reasons why this wouldn't work. And then we'd see each other and everything would be great. So you'll learn how you deal with distance as you go. But personally, I think it's really important to set a schedule and try your best to stick to it. Yes, of course, life is gonna get in the way and you'll have to adjust, but it's nice just to have a blueprint so you both feel safe in the relationship. Tip number 2, morning and good night texts. I personally like it when the guy texts me first, so my boyfriend learned quick that I was waking up to a good morning text from him. Also, usually the time difference was that he was like an hour or 2 ahead of me. So it was always nice to wake up and see a text from him because he was already up and thinking of me. It just made me feel like he was thinking of me. And honestly, that's how it went every single day. Every single morning he would text me in the morning, and it just made me feel safe in the relationship and that I was a priority for him. So whether, you know, you're the one texting your partner most of the time, good morning, or vice versa, I think it's really important to just have communication first thing in the morning. It doesn't matter who's texting who, but just touching base first thing in the morning, even if it's just a quick text, just so you still have that bond and you're connected. And I personally think that long distance relationships, you have to put even more effort into staying in touch and staying in contact, because there's so much more room for insecurity to pop up and you just really want to feel connected. So yeah, good morning texts, good night texts are also really great. Personally, me and my boyfriend, we would always talk on the phone at night and FaceTime and do all that stuff. But even if, like, let's say I went out with some girlfriends one night and we didn't have time to chat, just like getting home and seeing a text from him or me texting him to let him know I got home safe, just to keep communication going, worked wonders. So yeah, utilize text messages in the morning and night, and also texting throughout the day, like with any relationship. It's really cute, it's really fun. You can make it flirty, but yeah, just keeping in touch, especially in the morning and at night, is a good thing. Tip number 3, have an idea of when and where you'd like to live together as soon as possible. Again, I understand you're in a long distance relationship for a reason. It's because you both have lives in different cities that don't make it possible for you to just pick up and move to where the other person is. So this is where it can get a bit tricky. My boyfriend and I, starting off, I lived in Los Angeles and he lived in Arizona. And even though it was just like a 6-hour drive to each other and it was just a state away, they were pretty big states, and the lifestyles we led in each of those states were drastically different. So a lot of my anxiety came from not knowing when we were gonna live in the same place and how we'd make it work, and like when that would happen. And ultimately one of us had to compromise. Guess who it was? Yeah, I think a lot of anxiety in long distance relationships comes from wondering, when will we be able to be together? How much longer are we gonna be doing long distance? Especially for couples who are like in their 30s and older, that's where it gets kind of tricky, because if you're in your 20s, you can take all the time in the world to figure it out. But when my boyfriend and I got together, I was 30 and I was wanting to know what was gonna happen, how we were gonna figure it out. So if there is an idea of when you might be able to live together in the same city, try to have those conversations early on. Even if there's a city that you both don't live in right now, let's say Chicago, you both love Chicago. Wouldn't it be cool to live in Chicago together? Just float ideas around like that. It doesn't have to be a big conversation, but just even saying, what if we moved here? What if I moved to you? What if you moved to me? How would that work? Just like starting the conversation with what if, just float the idea around, and don't put a lot of pressure on it, but you'd be surprised how things work themselves out when you start these conversations. Also, the negotiations of how you're gonna live in the same city can be kind of touchy subjects. One of you is gonna have to sacrifice more than the other, and one of you will be gaining more than the other, and one of you is gonna practically be starting over, possibly. So I think it's important when you have those conversations on when are you going to no longer be a long distance couple and live in the same place, I think it's important to remember that there's a lot of sacrifice involved, and to not let the partner who is moving to you or to them go a day without feeling totally appreciated. It's a big deal. If you're the person moving for someone, especially if you're a woman, not every woman feels this way, but I personally had certain notes of shame in moving somewhere for a man, because we're told, my generation of women were told, be independent woman, put yourself first, don't move anywhere for a man, basically, because there are odds that it doesn't work out. And I was so sure in my gut that it was right for me, but also at the same time, I was conflicted because I loved my life in LA. And we had an arrangement where I still had my apartment and I would go back and forth, but I really just moved to Austin completely, basically. But yeah, I think me being the person who moved somewhere for him, there are feelings that came along with that were not the easiest to process, because I was worried about what people would think of me. I was worried about being judged. I was worried about it not working out. I was worried about feeling like I had abandoned myself mostly, and those feelings I worked through. It took about a year to feel good here after moving here for him. But yeah, I would be lying to say if I didn't feel certain tough feelings about moving somewhere for someone else, even though I know it was the right decision. But yeah, go easy on yourself if you're the person moving for someone else. Tip number 4, forgive quickly. You have to forgive quickly in a long distance relationship. Shit's gonna come up. I remember one time my boyfriend was supposed to come see me and something happened with work and he couldn't. And I was so upset because we were on our 2-week mark. And I was so upset, but I had to remember that it wasn't really in his control, it was for work. And the thing is with long distance relationships, where when something happens where you can't see each other, it gets so much more magnified because you haven't seen that person in so long and your bodies are connected to each other and you need to see each other, and it can get really tough. Also, if someone says they're gonna call you and then they don't, you just have to forgive quickly, and you have to understand that you're both committed to making this work and no one is perfect. I'm not, he was not. But it's important to forgive quickly, because the last thing you want to do is be fighting in a long distance relationship, and you want to be on the same team and the same goal. And the goal that you both have is to make it work and be together forever, ideally. Don't hold grudges. It festers more in long distance dating. So yeah, forgive quickly. Tip number 5. Be prepared to sacrifice. We already talked about the sacrifice of moving somewhere for someone, but there is a huge sacrifice in being in a long distance relationship in general. So in a long distance relationship, you're taking time out of your life to go visit your partner and sacrificing the time spent in your own city, working, seeing friends, being social, working on your projects, doing whatever you'd be doing to go visit your partner. And then when they come to town to visit you, you're basically doing a lot of one-on-one time. And for me, during my long distance relationship, I barely saw any friends because I was working a shit ton. And whenever he was in town, you always ask, like, do I want my partner to meet my friends and spend a lot of time with my friends, or do I want my partner all to myself? I always wanted my partner all to myself because we missed each other so much. He would see like one of my friends a time he would come visit, but there was never like a big group hang, you know? And I had this feeling of wanting him to really get to know my friends, but I also had this feeling of really wanting to grow our roots deeper and really progress the relationship. And that can only really happen with quality time. So I would choose quality time. And, you know, in the city that he was living in, he didn't really have that many friends because he had moved there for work a year prior. And yeah, it was a lot of just us. So I really sacrificed my social life and also sacrificed like in my job sometimes. It wasn't like I wasn't putting in like the full effort to things, but I definitely, my mind was always elsewhere, you know? So just be prepared to sacrifice. Keep in touch with your friends with phone calls. Let them know what you're going through. Let them know that your long distance relationship is your priority and that, you know, you might not be available as much, but don't like lose friends, you know, but make sure that you, that everyone knows what you're going through. So just be prepared to sacrifice in little ways. And yeah, you just have to choose what's most important to you at the time. Tip number 6, put in the extra effort. I'm talking longer phone calls, longer FaceTimes, sending flowers, like doing all the stuff to like really make that person feel special. Doing little fun surprises when they're in town. When they come to visit, plan a little fun thing. I would always make all these fun reservations at restaurants in LA when my boyfriend would come to town. And you know what? Sometimes we'd cancel all of them and just order takeout, but just putting in the extra effort and having fun things planned really helped our relationship stay exciting and fun. And just really putting in the effort to make sure your partner's needs are met. Knowing each other's love languages is a huge thing. My love languages are words of affirmation and physical touch, and already one of them was being deprived by being long distance, my physical touch one. So I already felt deprived and like my needs weren't getting met because I was, you know, not really seeing my partner all that often. But he always found ways to make me feel loved and cared for even when we were apart. Tip number 7, FaceTime is your friend. I don't know how people did long distance way back in the day before there were iPhones. Truly, I don't know. FaceTime is so important. Seeing each other's face. Talking on the phone is great. Hearing each other's voice is great. Definitely better than texting. But actually seeing each other's face is so important. And I would realize in my long distance days, when we'd go a few days without FaceTiming, even just 2 days without FaceTiming and only talking on the phone, it affected me. It affected us. And I felt like there was a disconnect. Yes, I'm a woman, I'm a female, I'm a feeler. I really craved and needed that face-to-face time, even if it was through a screen. So really utilize FaceTime. It helps grow the connection. You can flirt better on FaceTime. You can do dates on FaceTime. We would do FaceTime dates where I would cook dinner, he would cook dinner, and we'd sit. I'd light some candles and we would just do a FaceTime date and eat dinner together. Cute little stuff like that can be really romantic. Tip number 8, get old school with it. I'm talking sending flowers, sending letters. Yes, in the mail, writing letters with your hand and sending them in the mail. Long emails, like really romantic stuff like that. You have a beautiful opportunity in long distance to really get romantic with it. I remember when my boyfriend showed up at my door with flowers, I was like, oh my God, just the best. I mean, he should be doing that even if you're not in a long distance relationship. He does that now still, but just like really getting old school with it in long distance. You can romanticize the distance, and the distance can like have things build up in like a hot, sexy way. Yeah, distance makes the heart grow fonder, they say. I mean, I would go so far as to say distance makes the heart more crazier in my case. And if you're the female and you want the guy to do this stuff, you can just ask him to do it, or you can just start by like sending him a long email and like seeing if he like is down to do that kind of thing. That'd be cool if he was. Tip number 9 is only do long distance if you are serious about the other person. Okay. Now, some people might disagree with this whole hot take of mine. I personally would say don't just do long distance with someone that you're iffy about. Only do long distance if you actually see a big future with this person. Because when you do long distance, like I said, you're sacrificing, you're taking time out of your current life. You're kind of living in an alternate universe with this other person that's not physically there with you. It's a big sacrifice. And what I would hate to see happen is someone do a long distance relationship, stay in it for a bit too long than they should, and next thing you know, you've stay in it a bit longer than they should, and next thing you know, it's 5 years later and it didn't work out, and you're like, how do I even go about my life now? Long distance is such a big sacrifice, and I think it's really important that you should be really serious about the person if you're gonna do it. It's not to say like if you do long distance and it doesn't work out, it's a failure. Like relationships fail all the time. Lots of long distance relationships don't work out, but I think if you start off with this foundation from the get-go and know each other's needs, know each other's love languages, have a game plan and a blueprint for how you're gonna go about this relationship, short-term and long distance and long-term, it is truly possible to succeed. However, you really need to be serious about the person. And I would say, like, if you're still in your 20s and if you're in your 20s and there's any part of you that's still wanting to date around at some point in your life, don't do long distance. Just get it out of your system. Long distance is not for the faint of heart. It is like running a marathon. Patience, like extreme patience. And the hardest thing about long distance is just having that trust that things are gonna work out, because it's really easy to wonder if it is or isn't. And you just have to have this blind faith that it's gonna work out. But I'm here to tell you, if you are serious about your future with this person, if you are crazy about them, and if you're both on the same page and you wanna make it work, it is truly possible to make long distance work. I had never done long distance before until my boyfriend and I did it. And I was very apprehensive at first, but like there was no question about it. Of course we're gonna be together. Like when my boyfriend and I got together, it was like, this is what we're doing. And we were both on the same page, and we knew we were gonna get married. Like we just knew we were gonna do the thing. If you're both on the same page, you're okay with sacrificing, you're okay with really putting in a lot of effort, it's truly possible to make long distance work. And I want you to know that if you're feeling anxious in your long distance relationship, it's so good to just check in with your partner and like rearrange your ground rules, maybe change your blueprint. Maybe you guys need to see each other more often. Maybe you can go a bit longer. Just really keep in touch with your partner and keep checking in on what they need at every given time. So if you are in a long distance relationship, you got this. I'm sending you so much love. If you are considering a long distance relationship, watch this video, return to it as many times as you need. Utilize these tips. I know they'll work for you. If you like this video, shoot me a like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you next time.